Hi, we're here today at 10 Dundas East, and we are going to take our model and turn her into a wonderful zombie emo diva. And I think you'll be really excited about the results, and this is something that is a fairly simple one that you might be able to do at home with a few simple products from some of the local suppliers. I'm going to be adding a little bit of wax paste onto her cheek. Can you hold that just for a second? Thank you. The wax paste is a really nice scar wax, and it works to make a little bit of dimension so that we can add some details like a really dimensional scar. We're not going to be doing a ton of this type of work on her face, but this will just be a little piece of it. You have to get it moving and warmed up a little bit. Sometimes you can get some of this from somewhere like Spirit Halloween costumes. Okay, so this is a sculpting wax, and this sculpting wax allows you to create a little bit of a built-up dimension that you'll be able to carve into to make a bit of a scar. We're going to add it on both sides. You'll remember the Joker on Batman who had a bit of a slit mouth. It's that type of an effect. You have to warm it a little bit, thin out the edges. It's a fairly simple product to use, and it's made mostly out of waxes. Beeswax is a major ingredient. And because we're going to carve into it, it doesn't have to be totally neat. When it comes to zombies and special effects around Halloween, sometimes having a little bit more of a modeled effect actually helps. Whoops. I'm going to make a little cut into the wax so that it looks like her mouth is going to be slit open a little bit more than she would normally have. We're going to add a little bit of latex. You can get this in smaller containers or larger ones, depending on the effect you're trying to create. This is going to seal this a little tiny bit. And we're going to give it time to dry. I'll be able to carry on and do a few other parts while that's drying. Our base overall, the face, is going to be a nice opaque white. If you get a nice sponge and you apply, doing nice little circles as you're applying with a sponge, it's a little bit easier for your model to not feel like you're jabbing their eyes out or they're jabbing at their skin. It's a little bit more relaxing, and having a relaxed participant is good. It makes the process easier. And don't be afraid if you have somebody that's so relaxed they fall asleep while you're creating your special effect. I've had that happen before. And you're going to get some really good coverage. I'm going to extend this a little bit into her hair. So I'm going to go deep on her hairline and create a little bit of a dusting. Into her scalp. And especially if you have different colored skin, you're going to see these hairlines more pronounced. She's got blonde hair, so it's less pronounced, but you might find with darker hair or darker skin, you may want to pull that really back into the hair more to help that. And you're just doing a really good coverage. Water-based paints for face and body paints are the easiest to work with. You can work with cream-based paints, but they need to be powdered afterwards. You may find things locally like Snazaroo or Mayron. Put your chin up just a little. And don't forget the neck areas or any kind of skin you have showing, depending on whether you're going to be adding a scarf or a neckline. This is a basic technique, but you can make this quite complex. You could add a slit throat. You could add more scars and things on it, depending on how gory you want your piece to be, but this is a simple one that you could do at home with a limited palette, with the whites and the blacks and the reds and the grays. You don't have to buy every color in the palette. I'm going to do under her necklace here. This décolleté area is always important to do it as far back as you can go, depending on whether it's for pictures or if you're going to a party or something, then you got to kind of do everything if you're going to really be in character. These are water activated paints, so they will last a long time, as long as you don't sweat them off. So if you're going to do a lot of dancing and sweating or anything of that nature, you might want to go to a cream-based paint where you can powder it. You can see even with the white on top, just having that mottled effect around the mouth is actually kind of interesting, even as we speak. Close your eyes. Without a ton more detail on it. I'm going to go into the eye area with some gray and create a little bit of a sunken eye. Just blending it out a little bit with the white. And you may want to add some gray around your edges because it makes the skin look a little less alive. If you wanted to make this more of a zombie image, you could add a little bit more green to it. And you would have a slightly different look. Or a vampire. You still honor makeup ideas like cheekbones and things. Could help with where you put your placement of your colors. I'm going to add a little darker now. because we're getting some natural knitting of her brows, I'm going to accentuate that. Sometimes it's good to accent things that you're seeing coming out into the face because it creates something that's naturally there, and those deeper lines, depending on the makeup of the person's face, can actually add dimension. Now I'm going to take a palette of powder. I'm just going to let that set just for a second. I'm going to get a good load on my brush of a copper and a wild cherry and possibly a little bit of a walnut. So I'm making a brownie red with a nice big fluffy brush. I'm going to add some dimension. Less is more with most face painting. You can always add more. You can't take away as easily, so it's always good to layer. I'm going to use a little bit more of the gray with a little bit of a mixture of the red in it for a little bit more on the cheek. And because the white is underneath, it actually helps that red to shine a bit more and stand out. I'm going to go into this scar that we've created with some really dark black, and I'm going to feed it into some of the wrinkles and cracks as well. We're going to go over it with red, but it helps to make it look even deeper. So you just have to figure out what the deepest point of whatever the wound is you create with your scar wax or your latex, where you want the deepest part of it to be. And I'm going to feather little lines as well to make it look a little bit dried and wrinkled. A lot of your local Halloween stores like Spirit, they carry a good amount of products at this time of year. So it's a good time of year to stock up for these kind of looks. I'm switching to a round. You can probably get away with most face painting with 3 or 4 brushes. A nice large flat, a number 6 round is about this size, a number 4 round brush, a detail brush for most of your basic painting. Sometimes you can get little kits with 3 or 4 brushes in them. And for a beginner starting out, I'm going to accent some of her deeper grooves around her nose. And even these little lines around the eyes, I'm going to make them just a little deeper on her forehead. She'll look a little angry. This will be a diva you don't want to make mad. You can see her emotions. If we're going to call her an emo diva, then you'll see some of those emotions coming out here. If you want to add an aged look, you can add a few cross lines. That helps it to look like she's a little older, or the skin is a little bit more decrepit. I'm going to add a reddy pink onto her lips, blending it into the black. And once you add blood on top of this, it really finishes the look. It's amazing what a little bit of blood can do in these more horror-like pictures or faces. I'm also going to take some of the red and I'm going to run it into the scar. Having some clear lip gloss helps at the end. I have a bit of a blood paste. This one makes scabs. You can get, I think Spirit had Hollywood FX, and it's like a clotted blood. So it's like a thickened blood that you would find in the starting to dry places when you've had a cut. And if you add a little bit of black into it, it can go into the deeper grooves. It can also be good for zombie scabs. So you usually use a couple of different types of blood. A more liquefied blood running out of the wounds, and a more clotted, scabbed blood coming from the deeper scars. There is blood, a lot of it is in like bigger containers or smaller containers that you can find, and you can apply it with Q-tips or brushes. And you want to apply it in a way where it's kind of running and creating its own drip so that it looks realistic. And you can dab some little spots of it around. Some of the full-on zombies, if you're going to be having them look like they've been eating brains, you may want tons of blood. You can decide how much you're going to need and whether or not you're going to need to maintain it, and we're going to apply it throughout the course of the time you need your costume on. I'm going to take a little tiny bit of setting powder. It's like a translucent powder. If you have a translucent powder in your kit, your makeup, it's just going to make it look a little more dull, and it won't change the color. And I'm going to pull that into her hair a bit. zombies also look pretty dusty. So what you can do to make zombie hair as well, if you're wanting to add some finished effect to the look, is you can take a cream, like a hand cream or lotion or a hair conditioner, and you put a little bit on your hand. Dirty hair, a day or two old, helps. And you would just run it through the hair to make it look kind of matted and messy. Helps it stick together a little bit. And it washes out really easily, and it doesn't cost you much money. Maybe these are going to be some of your conditioners that you've picked up at a hotel you stayed at or something. You don't need much. And these are really simple emo diva for Halloween.